So I have in my possession today this rather nice Troubadour Hayden Duet Concertina from Concertina Connection in the US. This is on loan to me at the moment. I'd like to thank Steve at Red Cow Music for letting me have this for a while and see what I think of it. And I've owned this Elise Duet Hayden Concertina for a couple of years. I bought this on eBay, used, in very good condition. I've been teaching this instrument for a few weeks now, and I thought I might like to get a slightly better one, so hence the loan of the other one. I've got a comparison sheet, and you can see that on your screen now, and you'll be able to download this from my website. So at June 2024 here in the UK, the Elise is £479 and the Troubadour is £1,799, so about 4 times the price of the Elise. And these are both available from Steve at Red Cow in Yorkshire. I'm not sure if you can get them anywhere else in the UK. I don't think so. I think Steve is the sole distributor for the UK and possibly for Europe as well. Obviously, if you're watching this in America, you can buy this instrument directly from Concertina Connection. So the price is a big difference. The size is a big difference, isn't it? I'll show you some photos that I took this morning and you can see the obvious size difference. So there is a big difference in the price, and what I'm going to do today is to try and decide whether it's worth paying all that extra money for the Troubadour over and above the Elise. Let's think about the physical size of the two instruments. The Elise, the cheaper version of this instrument, is 7.2 inches across the flats. When we say across the flats, we mean from here over to here. You see, this distance here. So this one is 7.2 inches or 183 millimeters across the flats. The Troubadour is significantly smaller. It's only 5.2 inches across the flats, or if you prefer it, 131 millimeters, 13.1 centimeters. So it is smaller and it is lighter. This Troubadour is 2 pounds, 6 ounces, or 1.7 kilograms. I'm still a pounds and ounces man because I'm old, but there we go. The Elise is about 3 pounds, 1.36 kilograms. So the Elise is bigger and it's heavier, and that may not be important to you. Neither of them are a colossal weight or a colossal size. I've played some duets that are absolutely enormous, some of the old Jeffries and Crane duets, not in the Hayden layout obviously, but they are pretty enormous and pretty heavy. So both of these are pretty lightweight, to be honest. I won't bore you to death with all the specifications of the two instruments, but you can read it all on the spec sheet that I provided, and suffice to say they're both pretty good instruments, but it's the playability that really counts, isn't it? One interesting spec that I did discover is that the spacing is the same between all the buttons and they're the same size. So you might think that the Troubadour is more cramped, but it isn't. It's exactly the same. I've had this Elise for a few years and I've obviously set the hand straps up to suit myself. This is comfortable for me, both hands. I'm showing 5 empty holes on the left hand side and I'm showing 4 empty holes on the right hand side. And for me, my great long fingers, that's perfect for me. It means I can reach the first row of both sides on the Elise with no problem at all. On the Troubadour, however, this is set to its maximum, as you can see. No holes showing either side. And yeah, there's just about enough, but only just, I'd say. I think they could have been a little bit more generous with their strap lengths. I'd like to see 1 or 2 extra holes there. I'd quite like to have tried this slightly roomier on this right hand side, but you know, it's not a deal breaker, but I just think they could have been a bit more generous. Just another inch on the straps would have been, you know, good, I think. Then again, I'm not a good yardstick to measure this by because I've got very, very long fingers, as you can see. But that is, you know, a little bit of a problem. In terms of the quality, there's no doubt about it that this Troubadour is a much better instrument. I think the reeds are a lot better quality. They are Italian reeds. The bellows are made of leather, okay? Whereas on the Elise, Martin, my fettler, did tell me what these bellows are made of, but it's certainly not leather. It definitely doesn't smell like leather. And the bellows on this are actually stiffer than they are on the Troubadour, which is quite surprising considering this Elise is probably 4 or 5 years old and the Troubadour is probably just maybe 2 years old at most. But there we are, this is definitely this stiffer, and you know that can have advantages and disadvantages, but definitely this feels like a tighter, newer instrument, weirdly enough, this Elise, as opposed to the Troubadour. If I play a note and pull out, there's a fair amount of resistance. If I do the same thing on the Troubadour, I'll play the same note, an F. Yeah, I mean there is some resistance there. There's no actual leaks in the bellows, but it's much easier to pull apart, and you might like that or you might not like that. One very silly thing I think about the Troubadour is that the air button is here. It's on the left hand side, fourth row, the row in front, the row furthest away from the player, button 3. Now that should be a note of A, but they've lost that A in favour of the air button. You have got that A note on the right hand side, but I think it's nice to have it on the left hand side as well. I don't really see why they couldn't have put the dedicated air button on this instrument. On the Elise, the air button is dedicated up here on the right hand side and you can operate it with your thumb. Alright, the air button is not part of the playing technique, well not as far as I'm concerned anyway, it may be for some people, but I just think it's a bit crazy to sacrifice this A note, which you've got on the left hand side of this instrument, but not on the Troubadour. This particular Troubadour is a used example. It's currently for sale on Red Cow Music's website, so obviously it's significantly cheaper than a new one. I think this is up for $13.99 and the new ones are, like I said, $17.99, so it's a saving of £400, which is, you know, pretty significant, but you've still got to decide, you know, is it worth paying all that extra money? What it comes down to in the end is the playability and the sound. Let's talk about the Elise first in terms of playability and sound, shall we? Now it might just be my instrument, but on the Elise, these bass notes, these two low C and D notes on the left hand side, played with my little finger and my third finger, especially on the push, that is pretty hard work. As we get over to the right hand side, things ease up. Obviously bigger reeds need, you know, more pressure on them to make them fire, but I do find that's a bit stiff, and it's one of the reasons that I was thinking about upgrading to a better instrument. Other than that though, you know, it sounds pretty good. The notes, you may know that I've done hundreds of videos on my Jackie English concertina, which is Concertina Connection's English version of this, their kind of budget end. I've got a more expensive English concertina, but I tend to use the Jackie for all my videos, and I found it absolutely fine for what I need. This Elise is pretty good as well. I do like the sound of the reeds, the notes. Quite a vibrant, kind of fruity sound. It's not particularly what you'd call a classic concertina sound. It won't be because they're not concertina reeds. This isn't going to sound like a Jeffries or a Wheatstone. Even so, it's not an unpleasant sound, is it? And in a minute you'll hear me and see me play the same tune on both instruments, and then you can make up your own mind. But the reeds, apart from those couple of really low ones, they fire pretty easily. It's not too hard work. One thing about this instrument I do find is that this screw here, when I'm rubbing my thumb, that does tend to rub a bit on the inside of my hand. Generally I put a bit of tape over that to cover that because it is a bit sharp, that. So, you know, again, not a deal breaker, but something you might want to bear in mind. But these are nice looking instruments and they feel nice in the hands. Like I say, I bought this used and I got a reasonable deal on it. Not fantastic, but yeah, I've been very happy with it. I've only really started playing it seriously over the last couple of months as I've been teaching it. If you're interested in the Hayden Duet Concertina layout, this is a great way to get into it. It's not too expensive, is it? Hayden Duets are like hen's teeth. They're as rare as those. Very hard to get hold of. The Elise is pretty easy to get hold of, but anything better quality than that is a pretty tall order to get one. If you want something that's a better quality than this, you know, it's quite hard to find something, especially here in the UK. Most of the duets tend to be old Cranes or Triumphs or Jeffries, that kind of thing. McCann obviously is a big name, but they're all old and they probably all need fettling. Even this Troubadour that I'm showing you today has had a bit of work done to it. I took it to Martin White, like I said yesterday, and sat with him for a few hours while he tuned a few notes and sorted it all out, but it's in perfect playing condition now. So if you do happen to look at this and want to buy one and it's still available, I could recommend this particular instrument because it's perfectly in tune now and playing really well. In terms of comfort, playability, Troubadour wins hands down. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's very comfortable, bellows really nice. And if I play those two notes I talked about on the Elise, the bottom C and D, you know, they fire really well. The reeds on this definitely sound nicer. With this instrument you've got extra notes. Let's go to one of my other charts here. So if we look, you can see there are 3 notes on the right hand side that you don't have on the Elise that you do on this Troubadour. On this first row you've got C, D, E, F sharp or G flat, and on this instrument you have a G sharp and A flat here, which you don't have on the Elise. Similarly on the second row you've got F, G, A, B, C sharp, same as the Elise, but you have a D sharp or E flat, which you don't have on the Elise. And on row 3 you've got this G sharp or A flat, see that's in red, you don't have that on the Elise, and that makes this instrument fully chromatic. I say fully chromatic, it's not really, because if you started on the left hand side with this bottom C, you wouldn't have every single note. There's no C sharp between this C and D. Once you get to a certain point on the instrument, it does run chromatically for about 18 notes, so you know you've got every note in Western music on this instrument, and you don't have that on the Elise, which you know is a problem if you want to play outside of all the sort of normal G's and C's and D keys. What I'm saying is it's nice to have all the notes you need, because obviously you know if you play a tune and you haven't got those notes, then you're stuck. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't fudge it, especially if you're playing a tune. It's not like a bass that you're trying to sort of fudge, as they say. The left hand side of both instruments has the same amount of notes, but obviously on this button here, this is an air button, not an A. So in fact, on the Troubadour, there are less notes on the left-hand side than there are on the Elise. The layout is exactly the same apart from that. Like I say, just think it's a bit weird, but maybe there's a physical reason why there isn't a dedicated air button. I'm not qualified enough to know about that. But you do have those nice extra 3 notes on the right-hand side, making it pretty much fully chromatic. And of course, if you've watched any of my videos about the isomorphic layout, you'll know how useful it is to have all the notes in Western music there. So it's a nice instrument, definitely the Troubadour. Now the other day I did a lesson on the tune Wellerman, and I've already recorded me playing the Elise, so I'll use that bit of video now, and then once that's finished I will show you and be able to hear what the same tune sounds like on this Troubadour, and I will record that now. So there we are, that is the review of my Concertina Connection Elise and the Concertina Connection Troubadour Hayden Duet instruments. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's helped you make up your mind whether you want to just start with the Elise and see how you go, or whether you want to jump in and get the Troubadour, or if you've got an Elise and you want to move up to that. There are other Hayden Duet concertinas. Concertina Connection in the US make more expensive Hayden Duets. They make a thing called the Peacock, which is amazing. I think that's about £3,000 or £4,000. And also they make handmade versions, even more expensive, fairly crazy money. It's also worth mentioning the staggy Hayden Duet Concertina, Red Cow stock that they haven't got any in stock at this moment. I think they're expected any day now. That's got more notes, and Steve assures me that the quality has really improved in the last few years. They're made in Italy, and they're apparently a really nice instrument. I'm just watching videos. I think I preferred the sound of this Troubadour to the staggy, but obviously I haven't held one in my hands, and obviously that instrument is bigger, it's got more notes, it's got a bigger range, it's got the same notes as the Troubadour and some on top of that as well, and it's slightly cheaper. They are around about £1,100 brand new, and so quite a lot cheaper than the Troubadour and a lot more notes. I'm not sure if they're as responsive. I can't actually tell you that without actually trying one for myself. Maybe Steve will lend me one of those and I'll be able to review it for you. But anyway, that concludes the video. I hope very much you enjoyed watching it, and you'll see me in my next one.